What's up? What's up? Just setting the room, recording on IG Live. Just gonna go. It's gonna be recorded, so people come and enter the room. Just gonna be kind of a free-flowing chat about Charlotte and Creative Hub as I've seen it in the past. Oh, it's been a little over 5 years now. So so there's been a lot of talk the past week. I like to do these weekly chats kind of about what I've been thinking about the past week in design. So the big thing in Charlotte, I try to keep these regional about Charlotte. I'm curious to see if Clubhouse does have a regional component to it. There's really no way to filter by region right now, but it'd be nice to build a hub eventually, and this is just kind of the starting block with this group. So the big event that happened last week was a talk hosted by Hugh House, and it was about how should we fund the arts, because the city, so break it down, the Arts and Science Council is a independent organization that's been funded by the city for a while. And they recently have started to question this relationship, whether it's worth it or not. So the city says they can kind of do it independently of the ASC, and the ASC isn't doing all that they need to do for improving arts revenues in Charlotte. So there's been a couple talks about that, and that was a hotly debated. I think it was on Zoom. So the comment section of the video was crazy, and everybody was just really speaking their mind and making really good points. And so I just kind of wanted to distill this down in a little chat. What's up, guys? So the big question I had is, what does Charlotte offer a designer in the city? And when I moved here in 2015, it was cheap. It was pretty cheap. It was accessible. You had a lot of outlets where people were creating. Dup and Swat was kind of at its height, in my opinion, back then. And it just seemed like everybody was getting in, everybody was beginning their kind of design journey. And it seems like there's kind of been a ceiling established with all that. It's just interesting with this conversation between the city and the ASC, what needs to happen next? What is the creative guild like? If say you're a creative and you move into the city, or you're thinking about moving to the city, who are the people you meet? Who's kind of the people that will show you the way into the city creatively? And how do you build that? How do you build Charlotte as a hub to foster that, whether it's the film industry, whether it's music, craft, art? So can I speak more to the ceiling I'm finding? It seems there's a big disconnect between, there's a lot of artists starting out. I try to follow the art scene a lot, but it seems, you have Black Market, you have Dup and Swat, you have Goodyear Arts, and just for me as kind of a casual, it doesn't seem like there's any real traction with drawing the larger crowd that isn't super into art, but people that just want to spend a Saturday enjoying a music performance or an art piece. It has to be kind of an outside of the city draw, and I wonder why that is. With the exception of the Baby, which I didn't even see coming. I'm kind of upset I didn't see that coming. It's like Charlotte had the reputation of not really producing anything. And I remember moving to Charlotte and being like, yeah, I want to move here because I feel like it's an empty hole that that I can help fill with creativity. Um, so I mean, I hope the way I see a big help would be, and there was a talk on WFAE this morning with Tariq Bakari, a politician. Dave Has Wings, who runs a creative agency, um, head of the ASC. I'm forgetting her name right now, and Braxton Winston, another politician. And the comments were interesting. They talked about the dangers of the government kind of directly funding the arts, and they said back in the 90s in Charlotte, the government was funding the arts, and people were kind of they were I forgot what it was called, City of Angels or something. They were producing um, the arts were producing things that were kind of controversial, and when the government is directly funding these arts programs, it gets kind of murky as to how you're politicizing art. Um, so maybe there does not need to be a necessary separation there. And the way some of the comments were saying is maybe the city should focus on having spaces, um, to just facilitate kind of the spaces for art, whereas maybe a separate entity like the ASC should focus on having the individual donor program. The ASC, I mean, I've followed them. They do a pretty good job trying to help out individual artists and awarding grants to people. So they already have the knowledge there. But it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting, and but the big question still lies in how does Charlotte build a hub rather than just maintaining the artists that are around, and that's very important. But how do you keep people from leaving to, say, in Atlanta or New York or in Nashville or in Asheville? Like, what draws people to Charlotte? Um, and the thing that drew me, like I said before, was the affordability. But Charlotte is quickly becoming kind of that Atlanta tier, almost Washington tier in a few years level of affordability, where it's like, okay, I live in New York or I live in Atlanta, but the film industry is great here, or I have all these connections, or you see a ladder. Um, oh, thanks for being on Charles Creative. Talk later. Um, so where was I? So yeah, there's these industries that you have, um, and what industry can Charlotte have outside of banking? I mean, obviously everybody knows Charlotte's a banking city. It is a those those are the headquarters, and it just reminds me when I first moved to Charlotte back in 2015, there was a person that I would always meet at these art events, um, named Hannah Barnhart. She was very interesting. Like, she was a reporter, but she reported through drawing people. And I remember talking to her because we would always meet. She was it was funny because she was kind of a friend that I would only see at art events. So we were kind of friends in that regard, but our rest of our lives were completely separate. But I talked to her. I was like, Hannah, um, why are you thinking about moving away from Charlotte? And she was like, nobody's really there's not an opportunity to work as a reportage sketcher doing these events, even though they were really great and um, very succinct comics that she was making about events she would go on around town, and I thought it was very awesome. Um, but she was like, nobody, no journalists or um, no journalists or no companies would hire somebody to just be be a sketcher. Where's the money in that? So I'm wondering, like, what initiates that inside of cities where it's like either the government is like, this is worth employing somebody to capture the art scene here, or what private journalism company like the Charlotte Observer or the Charlotte Agenda or the Queen City Nerve would believe in somebody enough to put them on payroll to um, hire them out, and it's that spirit of taking that chance that it seems like builds upon itself. And now it's like, oh, I know a friend that only works as a sketcher of art events. Maybe there's room here for me to do this weird pop-up that all I do is, I don't know, take pictures of people walking to work, and I can have a job doing that. So I mean, especially during COVID times, it's like, how do you really be brave enough to expand out there? But something's got to give, and as Charlotte gets more expensive, I think that we're kind of missing the boat. And if Charlotte continues to be this more and more expensive while continuing to be kind of having this ceiling for small artists and not really boosting anybody, they're going to continue to see artists leave the city for greener pastures. So it's really my 2 cents on that. Just open up if anybody would like to speak, you can raise your hand. And what's up, Lumen? What do you think, man? Sorry I was so rambly, but I just wrote my notes down real quick.
Oh no, you're good. Actually, I actually think a lot about this because I guess that's always okay, my thoughts are going to be all over the place.
Yeah, that's fine.
And in terms of housing, in terms of deciding to be a creative, then there's always or not even deciding to be a creative, but wanting to pursue a creative career. Then there's always that decision of how am I actually going to establish myself? What basically cities or what programs are there for me to essentially get what's the word I'm looking for? Like